We're living in a generation when truth is falling into the streets. I want to be among those that are not running away from the conflict, but running into the conflict and saying, run for your life. Run from gospels that focus only on success and prosperity. Run! Run!
A lot of people were jolted awake in the middle of the night in San Francisco on Tuesday morning. You know what? It was an earthquake. Yeah, and a lot of people felt it. The USGS is estimating about 6 million people felt this thing, but there were a lot of tweets like this coming out of that area. Lots of shaking and rattling at my place, no damage that I can see. And the Fremont police confirms that there's been no freeway damage, no building damage, anything like that. This was actually a 4.0 earthquake, okay? So it's definitely big enough that a lot of people felt it, and I think that was kind of the unique thing about this situation. Now, the earthquake happened in Fremont along the Hayward Fault, okay? So if you look at the Hayward Fault, it kind of runs parallel to the San Francisco Bay, runs through some big areas like Oakland, Hayward.
Remarkable video to show you now as flash flooding sweeps through a village in Iran. This is in northern Iran, and the rushing water collapses homes right in front of us here. Look at this. 16 people are known dead, dozens still missing. In addition to these homes, the water swept away at least 25 cars as well.
In the future, there could be major flooding along every coast. So says a new study that warns the world's seas are rising. Jim Axelrod has that part of the story.
Ever-warming oceans melting polar ice could raise sea levels 15 feet in the next 50 to 100 years. NASA's former climate chief now says 5 times higher than previous predictions.
Well, this is the biggest threat that the planet faces.
James Hansen co-authored the new journal article raising that alarming scenario.
If we get sea level rise of several meters, all coastal cities become dysfunctional.
If ocean levels rise just 10 feet, look what happens to Miami, Seattle, and New York City. Just 6 feet of water would do this to Fulton Street in Lower Manhattan, this to Harvard University in Massachusetts, and this to Galveston, Texas. The melting ice would cool ocean surfaces at the poles even more, while the overall climate continues to warm. The temperature difference would fuel even more volatile weather.
As the atmosphere gets warmer and holds more water vapor, that's going to drive stronger thunderstorms, stronger hurricanes, stronger tornadoes, because they all get their energy from the water vapor.
Good morning. The Airbus A320 was forced to make an emergency landing in Grand Junction, Colorado. That's just about 250 miles west of Denver. Firefighters described whatever happened as a chain reaction that left as many as 20 of the 156 people on board feeling ill. And so far, there's no explanation as to why. Photos taken on board United Flight 447 tell the story. After one passenger fell ill shortly after taking off from Denver Wednesday morning, more passengers started complaining of sickness.
They've got several sick passengers, 6 passengers have passed out, several more are ill.
Then the man directly behind me started passing out, and then other people started passing out, and there was people vomiting and dizzy, and it was very unpleasant.
A spokesperson for United Airlines says the crew then decided to deploy the plane's oxygen masks.
United 447, the only information I got is there was smoke in the aircraft. Is that a true statement?
Local firefighters boarded the plane upon landing and tweeted, "No smoke in the aircraft. Smoke report came from deployment of the oxygen mask, dusty and powder from storage."
We're still not sure of the nature of what exactly happened, but the people that were feeling poorly are feeling better now that they're all on oxygen.
One passenger was taken to the hospital. The Grand Junction Fire Department says it evaluated between 15 and 20 passengers for symptoms including headaches and nausea. But the reason for the illnesses is still unclear.
I have no idea, but you can't fake projectile vomiting.
Skies darkened over Indonesia this week as 5 volcanoes erupted at virtually the same time, spewing ash and smoke across the archipelago in Southeast Asia. On Wednesday, steam and debris hurtled some 6,000 feet into the air from the eruption atop Mount Rong on Java Island. And these mountains spit ash and smoke in the Moluccas Islands. Next, it was the Sinabung volcano's turn to display its natural force. Mount Kuranjtan completed the quintet of combustion as more than 13,000 people were evacuated throughout Indonesia. Some 130 active volcanoes sit among Indonesia's more than 17,000 islands. Experts say the concurrent activity was a natural yet not extraordinary occurrence.
Alarming discovery in Ventura County. Thousands of fish found dead in the J Street Drainage Canal on the border of Oxnard and Port Hueneme.
News Channel 3's Kelsey Yerkins joins us live from Port Hueneme. And Kelsey, at this point, it's a mystery.
Yeah, that's right, Beth and CJ. I just spoke with a biologist that's getting water samples from this drainage culvert, and he tells me at this time it is unclear exactly why there are thousands of dead fish here. Now, the most alarming news about this is there is at least 9 different species of dead fish here, including saltwater as well as freshwater fish. Now, residents first reported the dead fish yesterday, and they noticed a large amount of fish of all sizes stuck in the Ventura County Watershed Protection District drain near Hueneme Road and J Street. By this morning, crews were at the drain cleaning up the dead fish and rescuing the ones that were still alive. While it is still unclear where the fish came from, several local residents are believing one theory, that water levels rose during the weekend storms and then dropped suddenly, sending the fish from the Ormond Beach Lagoon to the drain and then stranding them there.
Oh, Wendy, the scene in this Beverly Hills yard, something more like you'd see out of a movie set. Take a look here behind me. This is a drill rig sticking out of the ground here. Take a look down 30 feet into this hole. You can see this truck was swallowed up by this sinkhole. The back end of it barely visible as it's covered in dirt. Now, this homeowner telling us just a few minutes ago that workers were on his property drilling him a new water well when this happened. The family has not had running water for a week. Workers called him home around 1 o'clock, telling him they could feel the ground moving beneath them, and that's when this opened up. Those workers had just gotten out of this truck when it went down into this hole. As you said, all of those workers were able to make it to safety before this truck sank. Here's what this homeowner had to say.
Looked like Mother Nature was hungry and she was in the mood for truck. And there we have it.
Turkey gave the U.S. permission to use a base in that country to carry out airstrikes against ISIS in Syria. The Turkish military also scrambled its own fighter jets in response to increasing violence at the Syrian border. Holly Williams is in Istanbul. Holly?
Well, Charlie, this switch in Turkey's position comes in a week in which Syria's civil war spilled violently across the country's border. On Monday, a suicide bomber killed more than 30 people in a Turkish town close to the border, and a government official here told us that he was linked to ISIS. Then today, the Turkish military said that 5 ISIS gunmen opened fire on a Turkish border post, killing 1 soldier. So it's possible that Turkey fears that it is losing control of its border and has therefore allowed the US to begin using its airbase to strike ISIS. Also today, Turkey announced that it is building a new wall along sections of its border, presumably to try to stem the flow of foreign fighters into Syria.
Anger boiled over in the occupied region after the 52-year-old Palestinian man was shot dead by Israeli troops on Thursday. This was the second such deadly attack in the occupied territories in just 2 days. On Wednesday, a 22-year-old youth was killed as Israeli soldiers opened fire on Palestinians protesting a raid near the city of Jenin. Palestinian resistance groups Hamas and Islamic Jihad strongly condemn the deadly attacks. International organizations and human rights groups have also denounced Israel's human rights violations across the occupied Palestine.
Breaking news out of Lafayette, Louisiana, 135 miles outside of New Orleans, where just hours ago, a man stood up in a crowded movie theater and opened fire. There are fatalities, including the gunman. And we get the latest right now from ABC's Rena Nyman.
Tonight, a mass shooting at this Louisiana movie theater. Police say 12 people were shot and 3 are confirmed dead, including the shooter, who reportedly died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Authorities reporting that 20 minutes into the 7 p.m. showing of Trainwreck, a 58-year-old white male with a criminal history opened fire with a semi-automatic handgun at the Grand 16 Theater in Lafayette.
My daughter was in the same theater in the same row as the shooter. She heard some pops, and that at first they kind of just thought it was part of the movie, and then they started seeing flashes, so that's kind of what made them realize that it was shooting.
Units were close by and responded immediately. Our response time was less than a minute. 4 officers entered the theater to engage the shooter. They did hear shots being fired at that time.
The gunman then turned the gun on himself. There were more than 100 people in the theater at the time. Authorities reporting he acted alone and that at least 8 people have been transported to the hospital. Injuries ranging from non-life-threatening to...
In Turkey, it is now engaged in direct combat with ISIL. Also, hundreds of suspected ISIL militants and members of pro-Kurdish militant groups are under arrest. CCTV's Mahal Bardavid reports from Istanbul.
The unprecedented Turkish airstrikes carried out by F-16 jets targeted 2 Islamic State command centers and an ISIL gathering point in Syria. The military emphasized it had not violated Syria's airspace during the attack.
The military strike was codenamed Operation Yalçın Nane after the Turkish officer was killed by Islamic State militants on July 23rd during the terror group's first clash with the Turkish army at the border province of Kilis. That battle is seen as a turning point in the fight against ISIL.
Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan signaled more is yet to come.
Bu sadece bu geceye yönelik bir operasyon değildir.
This operation was not a one-time hit. From now on, it will continue steadily. The targets are set. Their names are insignificant. We will target all terrorist organizations.
Turkey has been under pressure to step up its efforts against ISIL, but the Turkish government had been reluctant to join US-led coalition efforts. With Syria's violence now spilling into Turkey, that calculation seems to have changed.
Iraqis who fled ISIL are now living in Jordan, living as refugees because of their Christian faith. CCTV's Stephanie Freed takes a closer look.
At 54, Adil never imagined he'd have to start all over again as a produce clerk. In Mosul, Iraq, he owned a restaurant, liquor store, and his own home. But when ISIL edged close to his town, they issued a decree: convert to Islam, pay monthly tariffs, and help kill non-compliance or face death. He fled at 5 o'clock. By 7, ISIL fighters had taken over Mosul.
Mosul, we saw what happened to neighbors. They paid the money, and a few days later, ISIL killed them anyway.
Adil is typical of the 4,000 Christians who began fleeing Iraq for Jordan last August at a rate of 250 per day. Jordan's newest urban refugees, they are affluent and educated and work menial jobs to get by.
When they finally make it to Jordan, this Catholic church is the destination point for most of the thousands who have come here. It's here that they don't have to worry about persecution from ISIL, and they know they'll get help.
They often settle in Christian neighborhoods close to churches. They have run from ISIL, but know the threat is still close by.
We are surrounded by ISIL, Jabhat al-Nusra, and other extremists, so Jordan also faces danger. But we rely on our faith and trust our team and military.
In the face of that threat, Iraqis, unlike Syrian refugees, hold little hope of returning home.
Iraq, there is no more Iraq. It's finished. There's nothing to go back to.
Stephanie Freed, CCTV, Full Heist.